Texas Democrats, this election, everything is on the line. We have the chance to turn Texas blue up and down the ballot, expand access to affordable health care, uplift working families, bolster our green energy infrastructure, and so much more. But in order to deliver on our promises, we must make sure that Texans have the chance to make their voices heard during this election. If you plan to cast your ballot in this critical election, you have to first make sure you're registered to vote, and registered at your current address. Luckily, Texas Democrats have launched an online platform, registertexas.com, where Texans can check if you're registered and then begin the voter registration process online. The voter registration deadline is coming up fast, so don't wait until the last minute. Throughout the registration process, we'll be there to guide you so you don't have to worry about navigating this process alone. First, go to registertexas.com to get started. If you need to register or update your address, we'll help you. We will help you fill out your form and send it to you in the mail, pre-filled with your information, as well as a postage-paid return envelope. You'll then be asked to fill out your registration address and your birthday. Select Continue, and then fill out your email and your phone number. Our database will then confirm whether or not you're registered. If you're not, no worries. That's what we're here to help with. Go through all the steps, making sure that all of the information you've entered is correct. And once you've finished, keep a lookout for an envelope in the mail from us containing your pre-filled voter registration form and your postage-paid return envelope. Don't forget, if you have any questions, call our voter assistance hotline at 1-844-TX-VOTES, and we can help guide you through the process. This election, we're going to make sure that every eligible Texan has the chance to make their voice heard at the ballot box. We'll see you on the right side of history.
We, the people of the United States,
in order to form
a more perfect union.
These words have guided our nation through the perils of history and the progress of society.
Right now, the very cornerstones of our democracy are at risk.
Justice is on the ballot this year.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg showed us how to fight for something bigger than ourselves.
No one should disparage her life's work.
Nor should anyone exploit the death of an American hero to undermine our democratic institutions.
Justice is on the ballot this year.
We stand on the shoulders of Justice Ginsburg.
From the United States Supreme Court
to the Texas Supreme Court,
When we restore fairness and balance to the Texas Supreme Court,
We will uphold the U.S. and Texas constitutions.
We will preserve our democracy and balance the scales of justice,
we will fight to ensure
That every single person
regardless of their race, ethnicity, orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status.
has equal justice under law.
Justice is on the ballot this year.
The Republicans of the Texas Supreme Court
have time and time again put power over people, stripping Texans of fundamental rights.
Almost always, there is a right and a wrong side of history.
And by staging a power grab hours after the death of Justice Ginsburg, Republicans have shown exactly which side they're on.
Justice Ginsburg fought until the very end.
And now it is our job
To carry on her fight.
justice is on the ballot this year.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for the Biden for President and Texas Democratic Party press conference here pre the debate tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about why Joe Biden is the right candidate for Texas and preview the debate. Joining us today are former Secretary of Urban and Housing Development, Julian Castro, former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, and Congressman Marc Veasey. We're really happy to have all of them here. A reminder for all of the press on the call, we're going to have each of the speakers give remarks, and then we'll do questions on a first-come, first-served basis. The way to ask a question is to type it into the messaging box, and again, we'll get to them first-come, first-serve. With that being said, I'll pass this over to our first speaker, Secretary Julian Castro. Secretary?
Thanks a lot, Abhi, and thanks everybody at the Texas Democratic Party for your great leadership. We have great hopes for November 3rd and beyond. And it's fantastic to be here with Congressman O'Rourke and with Congressman Veasey. Thank you for your leadership. I'm excited about tonight because Joe Biden has an opportunity one-on-one with Donald Trump to speak directly to the American people about his plan to make sure that we get past this pandemic, that we build our economy back better, and that everybody is able to prosper. A couple of weeks ago, I was at one of our local middle schools here in the San Antonio Independent School District. When I was there, I had the opportunity briefly to speak to some of the teachers who were getting ready at the time to welcome the first batch of new students. And you could tell in their voices that they were enthusiastic, but also concerned. And that same day, I had the chance to drive into downtown San Antonio and to think about what used to be in our hospitality industry, for instance, a bustling downtown with people coming in and out of the hotels, and compare that to today. I think about all of those workers, 3.5 million workers in Texas who still are unemployed because of this pandemic. I think about all of those families who are worried about eviction right now. It is clear that Texas is in a world of hurt because of the incompetence of Donald Trump, because he didn't take this coronavirus seriously, because he has not done those things that are important to keep families safe and healthy. Joe Biden has a plan to make sure that we can get past this pandemic, that people can get back to work, that our small businesses can get up and going again. And I'm excited that he's going to have the chance tonight to make that clear. He also has a track record of bringing us out of the depths of a recession. When he and President Obama took over in early 2009, we were losing 700,000 jobs a month. By the time their term was done, we had gone on the longest positive job growth streak in our nation's history, over 70 months of positive job growth. So Joe Biden has not only a strong plan, but a strong record. And Donald Trump has a record of failure. He's going to have to answer for that tonight.
Great. Thank you very much, Secretary. We're now going to pass this over to former Congressman and 2018 Senate nominee, Beto O'Rourke. Beto?
Thanks. And I really don't know that there's a whole bunch I can add to what Secretary Castro just said about the terms of the debate and the contrast that will be offered this evening, a contrast that I think is going to be clearly to Joe Biden's advantage. I'll just spend a minute talking about Texas in particular. And Julian is so right. Few states have been hit as hard as Texas, not just by COVID and recession, but by Donald Trump. We are the front lines of family separation and kids in cages. We are the state that a month and a year ago saw 23 people murdered for the color of their skin, their presumed ethnicity and country of national origin by a gunman who was inspired in no uncertain terms by Donald Trump. In fact, quoted Donald Trump in the manifesto he published before he walked into that Walmart with an AK-47 and began murdering people. This is a state that has Trump-inspired show me your papers legislation that seeks to instill fear in immigrant communities and mixed immigration status families to very great effect, not only harming those people and those families, but demonstrably making us less safe as fewer people in our communities trust law enforcement because they fear that local law enforcement may also be tasked with enforcing federal immigration law. So this is a state that perhaps better than any other understands the cost and consequence of Donald Trump. And it is a state, by the way, and not unrelated to that, that is Joe Biden's to lose. You all have seen the polls that have tracked a 1 or 2 point race for, I don't know, the last 6 or 7 weeks. And what we know is that, if you go back over the last 10 years of midterm and presidential election cycles, those polls have tended to undercount Democratic performance. Now, that's not a mystery, because this state up until 2018 ranked 50th in voter turnout because Republicans had so successfully suppressed the votes and intimidated voters across this state, especially the votes of Black and Latino voters in Texas. This is one of the most, if not the most, voter suppressed state in the country. Therefore, pollsters have a very hard time locating, tracking, and counting the votes of likely Democratic voters. On the eve of our race with Ted Cruz in 2018, most polls had me down 6, 7, 8 points from Ted Cruz on the eve of that election. As you all know, we lost, but we only lost by 2.5 points. We outperformed most of those polls by 4 to 5 points. Hillary Clinton in 2016 outperformed the polls by 2 to 3 points. You look at any major statewide race, and you will find that to be the trend. So even with the polling this tight, I think actually the advantage is to Biden. And if you will press the case in Texas about the front lines, the cruelty of Donald Trump, and also the state that has the most to offer to the rest of the country, if we will only allow the genius of Texas and its true diversity to come through, this is his state to win. And last point, folks, as you may know, we did not expand vote by mail in Texas. And as you may also know, we count those mail-in ballots beginning on the morning of Election Day, unlike what you see in Pennsylvania and some other states. All of this is to say, we will likely know the winner of the 38 electoral college votes in Texas on the night of election. So if this country wants to save itself possibly from days or weeks of uncertainty, from a lawless, unconstitutional president falsely and illegally trying to claim victory or to steal an election, then Texas. And so Julian, Marc Veasey, the Texas Democratic Party, Powered by People, there are so many good people working on this right now. If Biden makes this his focus, he will win this state.
Those are some great points. Thank you very much, Beto. We're now going to pass it over to Congressman Marc Veasey. Congressman.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And awesome to be on here with my good friends, Secretary Castro, and my former colleague, Beto O'Rourke, who was just tremendous in his 2018 run. I represent the 33rd Congressional District, and that includes thousands of hardworking men and women, many of them union workers here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, people that I've known literally my entire life that are looking for real leadership, and they see it in Joe Biden. We are here today because we are literally just hours out from our first critical debate and just a few weeks away from the election of our lifetime. I think that everybody would agree with that. And I want to say, as an early supporter of Joe Biden's and one of his early Texas surrogates, I know that he is capable of winning tonight's debate, and he is going to be focused on speaking directly to the American people because millions of hardworking Texans, just like those families I just mentioned, they're struggling right now. This pandemic has literally upended their lives and their livelihoods. And the lack of response from Trump and the misinformation campaign has cost 15,000 Texans and over 200,000 Americans their lives. We need better leadership. We need a leader like Joe. Tonight, Joe is going to talk about his plan to contain COVID-19 and build our country back better. And he's going to talk about his plan to ensure that all working families have a fair shot and that the super wealthy and corporations pay their fair share. Trump needs to be held accountable because after nearly 4 years as president, he's done absolutely nothing to help so many of the families here in Dallas-Fort Worth, so many of the families in San Antonio, El Paso, and all across our great state. He's done absolutely nothing to help them get ahead. And now he's refusing to sit down with Congress to negotiate a critical economic relief and assistance package to get families through this pandemic. Joe is going to prove tonight why he has a better vision and why he can bring our nation together instead of dividing us. with that, I'm going to hand it back over to the TDP to open us up for questions. Great to be with everybody today.
Yes, thank you very much, Congressman Veasey. There are a number of questions already. Again, to ask a question, type it into the question box, and we'll get to as many of these as we possibly can. First question is from Tom Abrams of KTRK. He says, I'd like to ask Beto and Secretary Castro about the prep for a presidential debate. What's happening in these final hours, and how does it translate on stage?
I'll take this real quickly. There's a school of thought where you just pack the candidate with as much opposition research and facts and data and gotcha points and one-liners that you hope the press remember. And then there's the school of thought, which I think Joe Biden is in, which is you just be yourself and you know who you are and you know what you know and you know what you want to do for this country. And I think that the more that comes through tonight, the more successful Joe Biden is going to be. And Julian and I both had the opportunity to be on that debate stage with him. And I don't remember there were no sizzling lines that came across in those debates, but you really got a sense of the man's character and his capacity for empathy and compassion and kindness. These are all things that are missing, of course, from our current president and much in demand throughout this country. His ability to connect with us and to heal a very divided country. And as Mark said, make sure that we come back better than where we were before the Trump administration for so many who need it so badly right now. If he makes this about all of us and not about the sparring between two men up there on that stage, I guarantee you he's going to win this thing. But we'd love to hear Julian's thoughts.
I think Beto and I both saw that Joe Biden is able to connect with the American people in these debates. He knows the issues backward and forward. He's able to convey both what we need to do and also to connect with people. So I think these last few hours really are about keeping a focus on the American people and not getting distracted by what surely will be a lot of personal insults by Donald Trump. And then also just relaxing. The key is to be relaxed so that, you can be opportunistic within the debate. And the thing about Donald Trump is he gives you a lot of opportunity. If you're speaking directly to the American people, a lot of opportunity to show people right then and there on the stage why this guy should no longer be in the Oval Office. And I think that Joe Biden is going to be able to take advantage of that.
Great. And that leads into the next question, which is also for Beto and Julian. What does a win look like for Biden tonight?
Julian, you start. I'll follow you.
Yeah, I'd say a win for Joe Biden is laying out his vision for the future of our country, his strong plan to put people back to work, get past this pandemic, and connecting about who he is. One of the reasons that he won the primary and that I believe he's going to win the presidency is because people believe in Joe Biden, the man. They believe in his character. They believe in that he's always thinking about them and their family. So a win would also be showing that tonight.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what Julian just said. And Joe Biden uniquely can do that. I think there will be folks watching who are concerned with a particular point of policy or a single issue. I would say that's probably not the majority of people watching. I think most people just want to know, is this guy going to look out for me? And is he going to make my life, my family's life, my community's life better? And I know from knowing Joe that is his singular focus. And you see it when you see him around people back when he could be around people. I remember on the eve of the Texas primary, we went to Whataburger for dinner. And he had to meet and talk to everyone there, everyone behind the counter, everyone at the fryer, everyone in the drive-through window. I mean, everyone in the place. He's just so intent on knowing you and knowing your story because he wants to connect with you and he wants to help you. I agree with Julian. If that comes through tonight, which I think it will, that's a victory. That's a victory. I think that's what people want to see.
That's great. Next question is from Jeremy Wallace of the Houston Chronicle. This is for Beto and Julian. If Texas is going to go to Biden, what has to happen in the Valley and Laredo, where voter turnout was way down in 2018 compared to the rest of the state? If that region turns out, how much of a difference does it make?
So I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm sure you did. I caught it on Twitter. Arnold Schwarzenegger, his foundation is investing like $250,000 to facilitate a super voting center in Cameron County in the Rio Grande Valley. And to pick up on something that Julian started with, I mean, Cameron County, Starr County, the Rio Grande Valley were just decimated by COVID because of Trump. It wasn't an act of God or a force of nature. This was a human decision made by the most powerful person on planet Earth, exacerbated and enabled by our governor, Greg Abbott. You had so many people dying so quickly that they ran out of room in the funeral homes and the morgues, and they were stacking dead bodies in refrigerated FEMA trailer trucks. But the Rio Grande Valley, 95% Mexican-American, is also home to a population that has been suppressed and intimidated from participating in our elections. This is not an accident, folks. This is by design. When a 3-judge federal panel in 2017 describes Texas districting as a racial gerrymander, when we impose the most onerous voter ID laws in the country, literally within minutes of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's fiery dissent in the 2013 Shelby decision, which gutted the Voting Rights Act, when you close 750 polling places, so many polling places so quickly in minority majority communities that Arnold Schwarzenegger from California has to come in and fund a voting center in the Valley, then you understand what we're up against. So yes, Jeremy, we all have to turn out at higher numbers than we traditionally have. But again, thanks to Marc Veasey, thanks to Julian Castro, thanks to Texas Democratic Party, which is stronger than I've ever seen it in my life, we are all connecting with, contacting, and I hope turning out the voters who will decide the outcome of this election. And again, kudos to TDP. You have 1.5 million Texans registered to vote. And Jeremy, I read your story on this last week. Just since the end of the 2016 election, typically we'll have 700,000 register in a 4-year cycle. We've more than doubled that. And there's still 6 days to go before the voter registration deadline. And all of us are working our tails off to register each and every last eligible voter in anticipation of this election, especially in those communities like the Rio Grande Valley that have been suppressed, or frankly, in some cases, Democrats, present company excluded, have taken them for granted. Those are the places that we're focusing right now. And yes, if they turn out, Biden wins.
Great.
I'm convinced that the heavy death toll from the coronavirus in the Rio Grande Valley has been a wake-up call for a lot of families, because so many families there can see just how much they have been shortchanged by the Trump administration and by Republican leadership over the last 2 decades or more. Public hospitals that are not there, education funding that is not there, job opportunities that are too scarce. And yet at the same time, in the RGV, you have a very hardworking community, people that have the same dreams and aspirations as anybody else. The RGV has also had a front row seat to Donald Trump's cruelty when it comes to migrants. So I'm confident that the Rio Grande Valley is going to come out in 2020 in larger numbers than they did in 2016, more along the lines of the midterm bump that we saw from 2014 to 2018. And that's going to help propel Joe Biden to a victory here in Texas. We just got the latest poll, as you know, Jeremy, that showed 48-48, as Beto said, which is true. Oftentimes these polls, don't do justice to the final number for the Democrat. So I'm hopeful that Joe Biden is going to win, and that's going to be powered by a lot of new voters from the Rio Grande Valley.
Great. The next question is for Congressman Veasey from John Moritz of the USA Today Network. Give us a sense of what's going on in Tarrant County, the last big county to start trending blue in 2018. Is momentum picking up or slowing down?
Yeah, no, momentum is really picking up in Tarrant County, John, as you know, being a former Star Telegram reporter. The growth here is absolutely amazing. And when the new census numbers come out, we're going to see that. But the Hispanic and Black growth in Tarrant County is perhaps some of the most robust in the entire country. And in addition to that, because of the great run that we had in 2018, Beto was the first Democrat to carry Tarrant County in quite some time statewide. And so we think that the future is looking quite blue in Tarrant County. We have to put a lot of work in, and we're going to do that. And I think that Biden is going to help us by having a great message tonight. Again, I think he's going to speak directly to American families when it comes to the economy. I think he's going to speak directly to American families that include families in Tarrant County on what his plan is for getting the pandemic under control and building our country back better. And so I feel great about Tarrant County. It is really amazing to see neighborhoods that you would never see Democratic signs in before. In places like Northeast Tarrant County and in West Fort Worth around Texas Christian University and along Camp Bowie. And you're starting to see that things are really beginning to change here. And so I think that again, I think it's looking quite blue in Tarrant, and that really is the key, as we are one of the last large urban counties that have been Republican for quite some time.
Great. I know we have a lot of questions here. We only have time for a few more, though. Next question is from Channing Curtis. He says, for everyone, there's been a lot of talk about turning Texas blue or even purple. What is the Democrats' plan to make Texas a better place for everyone, especially people of color? Anyone want to take that first?
I'll give it a shot. We've been really focused on these state house races. You all may or may not know this, but Democrats are only 9 seats down from winning a majority in the state house for the first time in 20 years. In 2018, we won more votes than did Ted Cruz in 9 of those districts that we've got to pick up. So we've shown that we can turn out those voters before. But the slate of candidates who's running right now is unprecedented and so impressive. In Julian's part of Texas, you have someone like Selena Montoya running for state house. Closer to where Marc Veasey is, you have Elisa Simmons. You've got Akila Basie in the Houston area, Natalie Hurtado. So many great candidates, so many of whom happen to be women of color, and Black women in particular. You are literally changing the face of government and changing the life experiences of those who will be making the laws under which we will live in Texas. And I think that having that Democratic majority comprised of these women that I'm talking about and these other amazing candidates is going to be essential in dismantling that infrastructure of voter suppression that has really kept Texas back. And then also critical in building, as Mark keeps saying, building back better. If we want this state to take the lead on expanding access to healthcare or criminal justice reform, or those issues that Julian has just been so incredibly eloquent and powerful on in terms of how power is used and accessed in this country, I want that to come from Texas, and I want it to come from these great leaders. And folks, by the way, we have this conception of coattails, a candidate at the top of the ticket sending voters down. I think we're going to see some reverse coattails in Texas, really amazing grassroots campaigns at the state house level that will expand and energize the electorate and send those voters up to the congressional races, to the U.S. Senate race, where MJ Hagar in the latest polling is 2 points away from John Cornyn and can totally win that, and then all the way up to the presidential race.
Yeah, I think that everything that Beto said is right. And I want everybody to remember, too, I think the key, for Democrats and making Texas a better place for people of color, it does start with candidates like Elisa here in Tarrant County. I mean, 5 of the seats that we need 9 seats statewide to be in the majority in the state legislature, to stop some of these voter ID laws, to stop some of the more egregious bills that you've seen come out of the Texas legislature. 5 of those 9 seats are going to be won in Tarrant County, and are going to be decided in my area. So I think that that's very important. I think another piece that's often overlooked, and I think that it's important to point out and pair with what Beto and Julian talked about. When you look at the low voter turnout in the Valley, the other area that's often not talked a lot about when it comes to African-American voters, of course, is in East Texas. And for East Texas means different things. If you're Black and you're from Houston, it may mean a town like Silsbee. If you're from Dallas, Fort Worth, it could mean towns like Tyler and Longview and Marshall. And oftentimes those voters are not touched. And I think that for us to be able to get the large, massive turnout that we need in the African-American community, that we need to also have a message for those rural voters, those sort of small town voters that often aren't looked at when it comes to the African-American vote, that often centers around Houston and Dallas and Fort Worth and other major urban centers. And that is, to me, going to be the key for us to be able to finally, after all these many years, and Julian knows because his brother and I, we, fought in the Texas legislature on so many different bills that the Republicans were constantly trying to put before us that were very detrimental to minority communities. And we have to take the majority back there for our citizens of color to be able to see that there is a difference being made.
I think that's very well said by Beto and Representative Veasey. Look, Democrats believe in a Texas and in America where everyone counts. We believe in a Texas for all, not just for some, like Greg Abbott and Donald Trump do. And I don't think there's a better example of that than the fact that Joe Biden has a plan to make sure that every single person in this country gets health care. Think about all of those people in the Rio Grande Valley that we were just talking about, or in Tarrant County, or here in my home of San Antonio, or out in El Paso, that have type 2 diabetes. Right now, Ken Paxton is leading the charge in a case that is going to be heard on November 10th, that may be heard by a new justice that is appointed by Donald Trump with the help of Mitch McConnell and his Republican buddies, including John Cornyn and Ted Cruz, to wipe away a protection on pre-existing conditions that would mean millions of Texans with type 2 diabetes, with asthma, with a number of other afflictions would no longer be able to get health care. As Democrats, we believe in fairness as well, that no matter who you are, you should be treated the same by law enforcement. You should have the same shot and opportunity in our country. And I think about all of those young children in our state, whether they're in rural areas or in cities, that are struggling right now because they don't have good internet access at home and they're on the bad part of the digital divide. They're in poor school districts already and they're getting shortchanged even more. Joe Biden actually believes in investing so that everybody has good broadband access. Donald Trump hasn't lifted a finger to do anything about that, and neither has Greg Abbott. So, the plan that Democrats have for Texas is about ensuring that everybody has the tools, every family has the tools to prosper, and that all are treated fairly.
Thank you very much, Secretary. We have time for one more question now. It's going to be from Todd Gilman of the Dallas Morning News. He says, news of Trump's low federal income taxes, how big of a deal is it? And given that Trump supporters don't seem to care about stuff like that, does it impact the race? This is for anybody.
I'd say it's a huge deal because you have a lot of people out there, the teachers that right now are scrambling to do their best in this remote learning environment to make sure that children learn, the nurses that have been worried about their own health as they go into their shifts to treat patients with coronavirus, the firefighters, the police officers, the restaurant workers who are just trying to get back to work right now. They think about the fact that they're paying more in taxes than our president, who says that he's a multi-billionaire. And now we know why he was hiding his taxes, because he didn't pay anything in taxes 10 out of the last 15 years and only $750 in 2016 and 2017. That's outrageous. People know that that's fundamentally wrong and unfair. And I don't think it's even about politics. I think it's about right and wrong. Folks recognize that Donald Trump has been hiding his taxes because he's in the wrong. And I think it is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to say that. I second everything that that Julian was just talking about. I mean, I know that a lot of people that work at American Airlines, a lot of their flight attendants have reached out to me. One came by a outdoor event that I was having the other day, passing out masks to people. and just was expressing her concern about losing her job. And, she's paying a lot more as a flight attendant. She's paying more than $750 in taxes. I mean, it's amazing to me that someone who says that he's a billionaire thought that it was okay to cheat the government the way that he was, and for him to try to live the lavish lifestyle that he was living on the backs of these police officers and firefighters and flight attendants and the other people that make up our workforce in America. It may not matter to some of his, ride or die crowd, but I can guarantee you that there is someone out there in America, and more than one person, that it got their attention, and he's lost their support because of it. And not only that, I think that this is just the beginning. I think that you're going to hear even more and more as the days and weeks go on about how he has fundamentally cheated our tax system, and as a result, cheated the American people.
Yeah, Todd, one of the things that really stands out in the reporting on Donald Trump's tax returns is that he is probably the worst businessman ever. Literally anything he touched or had any role in overseeing or creating or managing failed spectacularly by the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. It was only the stroke of luck of being picked as the host of The Apprentice and the marketing and branding and royalties from his name from that sustained him up until he was out of cash again right around 2015 when he made the decision to enter the Republican presidential primary. So I was listening to one of the reporters today in the New York Times who uncovered and reported this story, and they said there's a correlation that the more Trump is involved with any of his business activities, the worse it does. The less he's involved, when he just gives his name or releases his name in return for royalties, the better he does. So it should be no wonder that he has mismanaged the COVID pandemic in this country, resulting in the loss of more than 200,000 of our fellow Americans, more than 15,500 of our fellow Texans, more than 500 of my fellow El Pasoans. No wonder that he has driven this country into the worst recession since the Great Depression, twice as many Texans filing for unemployment in the first 2 months of this pandemic as did in all of 2019. No wonder that this country is in greater debt than it has ever seen, running higher deficits than we've ever known, with just a couple of very extreme exceptions. And then there's this that I hope all of you who are writing these stories are asking in your stories. To whom does Donald Trump personally owe $400 million? To whom is he personally committed for the $400 million? None of that is transparent in the tax filings that we've seen so far. He's never answered that question to the satisfaction of anyone in this country. And to have the most powerful person in America bound in some way, certainly financially, to God only knows who, is binding by extension the rest of this country. And that's a very precarious, very dangerous position to put the United States in. Not something you have to worry about when it comes to Joe Biden, who again is singularly focused on improving the lives of Americans, not saving his own ass from bankruptcy as Donald Trump is focused on right now. So I think that's a contrast that should be made bare in tonight's debate.
Great. And I know there are a lot more questions here. Unfortunately, we're out of time, though. If you have a question for any of the speakers, contact me at abhi@txdemocrats.org. I'll get that over to whatever speaker you want to answer that question. Again, that's abhi@txdemocrats.org. We're going to do 1 to 2 minute wrap-ups now, starting with Secretary Castro. Final thoughts on the debate tonight.
Yeah, Abhi, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody at TDP and, of course, to Beto and to Marc as well for their leadership. Texas can make history on November 3rd. But first, tonight, Joe Biden, I believe, is going to show Americans why he's the person that we need right now. A person with a plan to get past this coronavirus pandemic and to make sure that people get back to work, that small businesses are up and running again, and that families can prosper again. and he has the track record to prove it. So I think he's in for a good night tonight.
Thank you. Congressman Congressman O'Rourke, sorry about that. Former Congressman.
I get confused with Congressman Castro all the time. Look, I'm really looking forward to watching tonight's debate, because I'm really looking forward to America seeing this clear contrast between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And I think the prospects or the chances of a Biden victory on the 3rd of November are only going to improve. And then the chances of him winning Texas are going to be that much better. I'm really looking forward to this. And also, I got to tell you, looking forward to the Biden team putting even more of a focus, attention, and investment in the Texas voters. These voters are here for Joe Biden. If you will only come out here and ask for their vote and make a play for this state, his to lose, and could decide the election for this country on election night instead of having us wait days or weeks. So thanks to Texas Democratic Party, to Avi, to Julian, to Mark, and to all the writers and reporters who are on here. Great to be with you all.
And Congressman Veasey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you very much. And great to be on this call with my good friends, Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro. And I want to thank everyone out there in the press world for also joining us today. I think it's going to be a great night for Biden. I think that he has been waiting for this moment for a long time. And I think that he is going to do superb tonight. I think that it's going to be the same old from Trump. And I think that from Biden, you're going to hear a clear plan when it comes to this pandemic, when it comes to economic recovery, when it comes to restoring our status in the world, a status that Trump has undermined greatly with the things that he said about NATO and allies, and the way that he has seemingly just ignored the very worst in countries and strongmen like Putin. And I think that tonight Texans are going to get to hear Joe lay out his plan to build America back better. And that includes building Texas back better. And so I'm looking forward to this. I have for quite some time. And I know that Joe is going to do well and make all of us proud.
Thank you, Congressman Veasey. A reminder for everybody, we're hosting a post-debate spin room. The RSVP should be in your email. Besides that, thank you all for joining us. It was a great time. If you have any more questions, just contact me. All again, and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.